Voynich Manuscript, the book nobody can read. Inside Yale University's Beinecke library sits one of the most famous unread books on earth. The object is not mysterious because it is invisible. It is mysterious because the pages are visible in extraordinary detail, and still the meaning remains locked. The manuscript is known as the Voynich Manuscript, after Wilfrid Voynich, the rare book dealer who acquired it in the early 20th century. But the book itself is much older. Scientific dating of the parchment places it in the early 15th century. That matters, because it means this is not a modern internet hoax. It is a real medieval codex from a world of hand-copied books, herbal medicine, astrology, private libraries, and coded knowledge. When you look at the actual scans, the first shock is visual. Some pages show plants that almost look botanical, but many do not clearly match known species. Other pages show circular diagrams, rings, stars, and foldouts. Some sections show small human figures in green pools connected by tubes. Near the end are dense pages that look almost like recipes, marked with star-like symbols. Around all of it flows a script that looks practiced and confident. It is not a few random marks thrown onto parchment. The writing forms lines, paragraphs, labels, and repeated word-like groups. That is why the manuscript has resisted easy dismissal. It looks as if someone knew exactly what they were doing. The problem is that no one can prove what they were doing. Over the years, proposed solutions have appeared again and again. Some people have claimed it is a lost natural language. Others argue for a cipher. Some suggest medical notes, herbal knowledge, astrology, alchemy, shorthand, a private code, or even an elaborate hoax. But a real solution must do more than translate a dramatic phrase from one line. It has to explain the whole system across the manuscript. That is where the Voynich manuscript becomes a perfect brain unbound mystery. It sits at the intersection of history, cryptography, linguistics, psychology, and the limits of pattern recognition. Human beings are extremely good at seeing meaning. We see faces in clouds and messages in noise. When we look at these pages, we want the symbols to say something. But wanting meaning can create false certainty. At the same time, dismissing the manuscript as nonsense too quickly is also risky. Researchers have identified statistical features that appear language-like. 1+1 study argued that the text shows patterns consistent with linguistic structure. That does not prove we know the language. It does not prove a readable message is waiting. But it does suggest the text is not easily explained by simple random gibberish. Think about that tension. If the manuscript is meaningful, it may preserve knowledge we cannot access, plants, medicines, cosmology, recipes, private doctrine, or something else entirely. If it is meaningless, then it is still extraordinary, because someone created hundreds of pages of convincing pseudotext and imagery centuries before modern hoax culture. The plant drawings are a perfect example. Some look almost familiar for a moment. Then the details slip sideways. A root looks like an animal. A flower combines features that do not obviously belong together. A leaf arrangement seems plausible but not identifiable. Are these distorted botanical drawings, symbolic diagrams, composite plants, memory devices, or deliberate inventions? Each possibility changes the meaning of the book. The circular diagrams are just as dangerous. They invite astronomical readings because they contain rings, stars, and repeated structures. But medieval diagrams could mix astronomy, astrology, medicine, calendars, cosmology, and spiritual symbolism. A wheel is not automatically a star chart. A ring is not automatically a planet. The images may be technical, symbolic, instructional, or all three at once. Then there are the bathing figures and green pools. They look almost like a system, connected vessels, pipes, bodies, flows, and containers. Some viewers imagine medical bathing. Others imagine anatomy, alchemy, astrology, or metaphor. The responsible answer is that we can describe what we see, but we cannot confidently name what the system meant to its maker. That distinction matters. Description is not decipherment. Similarity is not proof. A drawing that reminds us of a plant does not prove it is a plant manual. A repeated word form does not prove a translation. The Voynich manuscript is a machine for exposing weak reasoning, because almost any theory can find one page that seems to support it. A strong theory has to survive the whole book. It must explain why some glyph combinations appear frequently and others rarely. It must explain why different sections seem to behave differently. It must explain the line structure, paragraph structure, labels near drawings, and dense recipe-like pages near the end. It must explain not only isolated words, but the entire ecology of the manuscript. This is why many claim decipherments collapse. A method may produce a dramatic sentence from one passage, but if the same method can be adjusted to produce many answers, it is not a solution. If it only works on selected pages, it is not enough. If the translation depends on guessing the desired result before reading the symbols, it is circular. The manuscript also reminds us that lost context can be more powerful than encryption. We often imagine a secret code as something intentionally locked. But the past can lock itself accidentally. A private notation dies with its users. A workshop tradition ends. A community disappears. A reference text is lost. Centuries later, a meaningful document can look like nonsense because the social world that made it meaningful is gone. This possibility is haunting because it is ordinary. Human history is full of systems that made sense to insiders and almost no one else: trademarks, recipe shorthand, guild knowledge, family codes, astrological tables, medical mnemonics, monastic abbreviations, and personal notebooks. Most of them were never designed for strangers 600 years later. So the Beinecke manuscript may not be hiding from us in the dramatic way we imagine. It may simply belong to a context that no longer exists. That is why the book is still valuable even unsolved. It teaches humility about archives. Digitization preserves access, not automatically meaning. Meaning requires keys, languages, practices, comparison texts, cultural habits, and living or reconstructed context. Without those keys, a page can be preserved perfectly and remain silent. In the end, the Beinecke manuscript is a mirror. To cryptographers, it looks like a cipher. To botanists, it looks like strange plants. To historians of medicine, it suggests recipes and remedies. To computer scientists, it becomes data. To storytellers, it becomes a portal into hidden knowledge. The object stays the same, but every field sees its own temptation. The safest conclusion is not boring. It is more powerful. We have a real medieval manuscript, made with real materials, filled with structured unknown writing and bizarre illustrations, studied for generations, and still not convincingly read. That is enough. We do not need aliens, magic, or fake certainty to make it astonishing. The mystery is already sitting in the open. Page after page, line after line, the Beinecke manuscript shows us everything except the one thing we want most: meaning. And until someone proves otherwise, it remains a book that stares back at modern civilization and quietly refuses to be read. If you want more strange true stories from the edge of history and science, subscribe to Brain Unbound.